I'm just curious, would it surprise you to realize that there's a lot of people out there that want you to spend a lifetime in financial bondage? That's right. They want you to be a slave. They want you paying them forever. Hi, my name is Keith Abel. I'm a pharmacist, a wellness consultant, and a home business entrepreneur. And I want to share some important information with you. There's a lot of bubbles that have happened in my lifetime. You've got the Y2K bubble, the technology bubble, the Wall Street bubble, the housing crisis bubble, where things just got completely out of control and then came crashing down. Well, the next big bubble that I think is going to bust is the education bubble. Now, don't get me wrong. I think education is a good thing. I support knowledge and learning. I myself am constantly improving my skills through education. But I'll tell you, our university system is completely out of control and setting up kids to have a lifetime of debt. Just want you to listen to this story.
Good evening. Of all the time bombs in the American economy set to explode with dire consequences, this is a big one. Staggering debt from student loans. Everyone is told a college education is a way to get ahead. College tuitions, though, keep going up. So does the borrowing. And we just hit an awful milestone. Our nation's combined student loan debt has now hit $1 trillion. That averages out to $24,000 per student. It's now larger than credit card debt in this country, and it comes just as an entire generation is just starting out. Today, the president suggested one fix. More on that in a moment. But we have two reports to start out with tonight, beginning with NBC's John Yang in Chicago.
For millions of college students, the joy of graduation is quickly followed by dread, a new life with old debts. University of Illinois at Chicago senior Andrea Watson will owe about $40,000 in student loans.
It's very scary to know that before I even get that first real career job, I'm just going to have thousands and thousands of dollars over my head.
In a new report out today, the College Board, which runs the SATs, says tuition and fees at four-year private colleges are up 4.4% from last year to an average of $28,500, and up 8.3% at public schools to more than $8,200.
I'm the one-man band.
With first jobs hard to find and starting salaries falling, frustration is turning to anger.
What kind of 18-year-old teenager is going to have that kind of money?
I'm angry.
College is a gigantic scam. A scam to get your money.
It's expressed in a series of YouTube videos and at protests across the country sparked by Occupy Wall Street.
I'm constantly in deferment.
Protester Tim Weldon graduated from Michigan State University with an economics degree and $20,000 in debt.
What's the point of going to school if A, you can't get a job, B, you can't pay back your student loans?
Analysts say the heavy burden of student debt is a drag on the broader economy. Recent graduates struggling to pay off loans are less likely to take major steps like getting married and buying a house. Still, experts say it's worth the financial pain.
College is still the best investment you can make in your future, and our economy needs more people to go to college.
I don't want to be like my friends who are still living at home, working at like Walmart or Kmart and can't pay off their student loans.
The new reality for college graduates who find themselves paying the price of an education in more ways than one. John Yang, NBC News, Chicago.
So here's what's happened over the course of the last 10 or so years. Since 2003, from 2003 to 2013, student loan debt has quadrupled. In the last 10 years, it's quadrupled. The average price of a year in college in 1980 was $8,756. That's for a four-year degree. The cost per year, $8,756. Today, it's $21,657 per year. That means to the students going to go to the four-year college now, they're going to have to get in debt for about $100,000 in student loans that they're going to have to pay back when they graduate. And do you think it's easy for a college graduate to get a job in this marketplace? I want you to think again. It's tough for a college graduate, a recent college graduate, to go get a job. To get a job, let alone to get a job that's going to pay them a decent enough income to make a living and to pay to get out of that student loan debt in any foreseeable future. Now, I know people today in their 30s and 40s that are still dealing with student loans that they ran up. So now the cost of education, the cost of a university education has gone up over 3 times the rate of the Consumer Price Index. In other words, when looking at the cost of living, it's gone up over 3 times the cost of living. It's gone up by 600% since 1980, while the consumer price index has only gone up about 150% in that same time frame. I want you to think about that. Shouldn't education kind of match everything else that's going on in the world as far as when it comes to the rate of inflation? Well, for the most part, it's a racket. It's a system designed to keep you in debt, to keep you in debt while you learn about jobs that, guess what? Most of them are going to be obsolete when you graduate.
Diana Berkovitz owes Columbia University a lot. She got a good education, made important professional contacts, and ran up a student loan debt there and at Ithaca College that will keep her in hock for at least 20 years.
What I realize now is when I was 18, I had no concept of what it would mean to go to a school that costs more and what I would end up paying when I graduated.
Her $80,000 in loans from her undergraduate and graduate school days are on the high end of the red ink, but student loan debt in this country is now greater than credit card debt. Casey Rasmussen is a senior at the University of Illinois who's afraid to even calculate what she owes.
Will it force you to make certain life choices that if you didn't carry around debt like that you wouldn't have to make?
Probably going to have to work a job that I don't necessarily want to.
And that's not all.
It can affect a lot of choices, like when to buy a home or whether to buy a home, getting married, having kids, saving for retirement, and saving for their own kids' education.
There's no question that many students are racking up large amounts of debt, but many economists call that good debt. They liken it to a smart investment.
You expect that it will pay off over many years. And borrowing money to go to college is like borrowing money to start a business.
Sandy Baum is an education policy analyst.
You're going to have a much higher lifetime income if you borrow and go to school and repay those loans than if you stop your education after high school.
The numbers don't lie. In 2008, the median earnings of a bachelor's degree recipient were almost $22,000 more per year than a high school graduate. And lifetime, college grads earn 65% more than high school grads.
Now, don't get me wrong. I told you I'm a huge fan of education. I'm just not a fan of financial bondage for people. The number of student borrowers has increased 66% from 2005 to 2012. The average student loan balance has increased 49% from 2005 to 2012. Student loans now surpass, when it comes to total debt by borrowers, student loan debt now surpasses credit card debt or even automobile debt. It's just an absolute epidemic.
Now, America's biggest debt burden is now on the shoulders of people who have yet to even start a career. The money owed on student loans now outstrips the nation's credit card debt as the #1 financial problem. And a surging unemployment rate of nearly 10% is only likely to worsen the situation. RT's Anastasia Cherkiner has been to meet some of those badly hit by the crisis.
A ticking time bomb of American debt. This time, all this is owed by college students. $3,000 adding on every second.
If I keep going at the rate that I went the first year, by the time I'm finished, I will have about $120,000 worth of debt, just from school loans.
The most traditional financial baggage dragging behind for Americans has been credit card debt. For the first time, debt belonging to college students has taken over that #1 spot.
Students graduating in 2008, 2009, and 2010 are facing the worst job markets in a generation at least. And so you have people who have more debt than we've ever seen before and are having a harder time finding any job, let alone a job that pays them enough to somehow pay off all this debt.
29-year-old Shayna is haunted by major money problems. What she earns now is barely enough to survive on a day-to-day basis, let alone pay back for her education.
The money that comes from the internship is, like I said, very little and doesn't pay for much. It'll pay for maybe a dinner or two.
The connection between lack of a good enough, if any, job and growing debt has never been as tight for graduates. According to some reports, at certain American universities, students have been borrowing 70% more money in the last year.
The universities are actually cutting deals with the student loan companies and making money on the side. There's been a lawsuit in New York, $1 million fine against Columbia University for steering people to expensive loans. The danger here is that instead of capitalism, we end up with serfdom because these students are kind of indebted for life.
Dennis House lives in a basement in Queens with 2 roommates.
Your loan that you're paying back shouldn't cost as much as it costs you to live in a home. What they're doing is completely lowering the standard of living for an entire generation of people who couldn't help it in any way.
Just months after graduation, Dennis's relationship with his loan company is already abusive.
They're terrible. They're the biggest loan sharks, in the world right now. If you're late on a payment, they'll harass you.
This harassing can never go away. College debt owners cannot file for bankruptcy.
Your housing debt, your car debt, your credit card debt, if you go bankrupt, it gets wiped away. You literally cannot get out of your student debt. If you decide you can't pay it, too bad. Student loan debt's special, and it's especially sticky and hard to get rid of.
When your credit score falls, getting a job becomes even harder. Many companies check these numbers. Outside a major loan corporation, journalist Joe Weisenthal says youth is often pressured into taking on commitments it can't afford without even realizing it.
There's an incredible amount of propaganda regarding student loans and education in general, just in terms of people saying, how many times have you heard the phrase, education is the best investment you can make?
But unless a drastic turnaround in the system takes place, that statement may soon become obsolete. Ever since an economic crisis began in the U.S., the debate of how it started and how to define what's happening now has been non-stop. In this turmoil, a generation that is supposed to be the driving force of the country got stuck, jobless and indebted. So what happens next if the future of those who have to run the future is this bleak? Anastasia Churkina, RT, New York.
Now, you want to go to college, fantastic, wonderful. Here's my advice for somebody who wants to go to college. Learn a specific skill. All these generic college degrees out there, these generic college experiences, they don't really prepare you to do what you need to do. Learn a specific skill and learn it well. Why not even take charge of your own future? Why not, while you're going to school, take 10 hours per week and apply it to a business that will pay for your school in the end? What if you could just make $1,000 or $2,000 a month part-time in a business that you're passionate about and use all of that money to pay for your education? What a different situation you'd be in to leave your educational experience debt-free and have a cash flow business in addition to your diploma. Wouldn't that be a better situation? All the credit card companies, all the banks, the government, it seems like everybody in the world wants you to stay in debt, in bondage to them. I don't want you to live that way. I want you to be free, to have choices, to have options, to not spend 20, 30 years working to pay for a piece of paper. You will actually more than likely pay for that piece of paper 2 or 3 times over by the time you get all the interest charges and fees out of the way that are stacking up against you. Then you can use your education to do whatever you want to do in the world, but you're not going to be a slave. Would it be okay if I showed you a better way, a way that will create a future? What I love most about what I'm seeing right now in this business, it's the young people in this business. They're rising up and they're saying, to heck with the old model, to heck with this economy, to heck with people being in charge of my life. I'm going to use this business to own my future, to be debt-free, to be totally in charge. Would it be okay if I tell you about a friend of mine? He was in his first year of graduate school when he and his wife discovered that she was pregnant. Not only pregnant, but pregnant with triplets. He didn't know what he was going to do. He knew he needed a bigger car, and he's going to need basically 3 of everything. He wouldn't be able to provide for all those expenses and continue to go to school. So he really didn't know what to do. Then his father introduced him to a business concept that he could do part-time around his school schedule, something that was flexible and that he controlled. He saw the value and the possibilities, and he jumped right in.
First off, let me introduce myself. My name is Todd Smith. I was first introduced to Dr. Wallach back in October of 1996. So I've been with him for 14 years now. And the truth of the matter is that I was introduced to Dr. Wallach not because I had health concerns at the time, but I had a very sick wallet. Okay, anyone had a sick wallet before? You know what I'm talking about? I was in need of some money, and the reason was I was in my first year of law school when my wife and I found out we were having triplets. And we hadn't had any kids before, and so you can imagine all of a sudden 3 babies, you need a bigger car, a bigger place, and well, 3 of everything, right? You had to get a lot of things. And so I was in a little bit of a financial crunch. And I'd found a few ideas, things I could do from home. I took them up to Idaho where my parents live, and I showed them to my dad. He's very successful in business. I trusted his judgment. I said, Dad, here's this idea, what do you think? And here's this idea, what do you think? I showed him to him. And after he heard all those ideas out, he said, Todd, I have no idea. I've never done any of those. And so I don't know if they'd work or not. They could be great, but I don't know. But he said, one of the things you showed me was a nutritional product. And I knew nothing about nutrition. It was just something I'd come across. He said, I don't know anything about that particular product, but he said, your mom and I have found something that is fantastic. And he said, I want to show it to you. So he went over to the refrigerator and he poured a glass of juice and he poured some stuff in and stirred it up and he slid it across the bar to me and he said, here, drink this. Well, I knew my dad pretty well, so I smelled it first. And then I said, what's in it? And he said, I don't know for sure. He says, it's some old stuff that comes out of the mountains of Utah. But he said, all I know is that your mom started getting this from a friend, the gal that she plays tennis with, and it's helped her with arthritis. Basically, arthritis is gone. Bone spurs are gone. She doesn't have to wear the orthotic in her shoe anymore. And he said she was feeling so great and having so much energy that I decided, you know, I'd sneak some. He'd been giving her a hard time about it before that, right? You're wasting your money, that kind of thing. So he started sneaking some. And he said, the stuff works. It's for real. And he said, if you're going to go and try to sell a nutritional product, especially to neighbors and friends and family, he said, you can't go sell just any product, especially because there are snake oil salesmen out there, okay? There are people that talk a lot about something, but it's not actually the real deal. And he said, you've got to make sure that what you're selling is real, and this stuff is for real. I said, great, tell me more. And then he introduced me to the fellow that he was purchasing it from, who introduced me to Dr. Wallach, and I got to actually hear Dr. Wallach speak. And after that, and meeting a bunch of people who had been following his regimen, following his advice, and how great they felt in their stories, I said, this is it. You know, Darcy and I, we said, let's jump in, we do this. And so originally when we got involved, this was just a plan to get us through college, right? It was just a short-term thing to pay the bills so that I could finish my grad degree and then go off and get a job, right? That was the plan. The person who introduced this to me said, I bet if you work this hard like a business, that by the time you graduate, you won't want to go be an attorney. You'll stay with this. And I laughed him off. I said, yeah, whatever, okay. Because all I had was this, you know, students, right? How far in advance are students thinking? The end of the semester, right? Because then classes start again, right? So I didn't have that long-term focus when I started. But fantastically, by the time we were done with school, I had a flourishing business. And I found out that not only was this a business that allowed me to pay my bills and do wonderful things with the family, but I've been able to help literally thousands of people with their health along the way and see fantastic things happen. I mean, things that I would have to say are just short of miracles. People that are really broke down in their health and have an absolute turnaround. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's how I was introduced to this company. That's why I've been involved, and that's why I will always be involved. It's because it is a company that makes a difference.
Now, by the time Todd graduated from school, he not only had all of his student loan debt paid off, he actually had a residual income built up that allowed him to make choices about his future. Because his business was doing so well, he never even pursued a career with the degree that he earned. Would it be okay if I shared some more information with you? Some information that will show you how to be free, to have those choices, to have options, to not spend 20 or 30 years working to pay for a piece of paper, a way to use your education to do whatever you want to do in life without being a slave to your student loan debt. If you'd like more information, visit my website, students.aimhighforsuccess.com. That's students, aimhighforsuccess.com. Or feel free to call me on my toll-free information line. It's 866-257-3105. That's 866-257-3105.